Frederick Douglass and Medgar Evers were both major figures in the African American reforms.
Although they both had very similar aims, they were separated by different centuries. Here are their stories.
Frederick Douglass was a slave for the first 20 years of his life, but in 1838 he escaped by posing as a sailor using protection papers. Later, he raised enough money to officially buy his freedom from his owner. His abolitionist career began in 1841 when he attended an abolitionist gathering. He was unexpectedly asked to speak, and he related his experience as a slave. He became a very persuasive speaker, traveling throughout the U.S. to speak about the abolition of slavery and occasionally about women's rights. He wrote 3 autobiographies and created the newspaper The North Star, which spoke against slavery and oppression. He once said, "I'm a Republican, a black, dyed-in-the-wool Republican, and I never intend to belong to any other party than the party of freedom and progress." In 1955, the National Park Service of the U.S. Department of the Interior declared his Washington home a national shrine. Frederick Douglass spent his entire life despising all types of oppression and doing everything he could to help those being mistreated.
Medgar Evers, a 20th century civil rights activist, entered college in 1948, majored in business administration, and graduated in 1952. After college, he joined the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. He became the field secretary and organized voter registrations, drives, and demonstrations. He spoke about the plight of his people and pleaded with the all-white government of Mississippi for progress in race relations. Evers protested against a case that penalized an African-American man who was convicted for the stabbing of 3 white men. Evers told the court, "The cases indicate the inconsistency of Mississippi justice for Negroes and whites." He said this because weeks before, a white man was indicted on a reduced charge for the killing of a Negro boy, while the African-American man was charged with a life sentence for a similar crime. In 1963, Evers was assassinated by a white man who disagreed with his political views. He died being known as a great leader of civil rights, a martyr, and a true hero. The NAACP awarded Evers the 1963 Spingarn Medal for a tribute to a man who had given his life for the organization's cause for equal rights.
Medgar Evers and Frederick Douglass were African American civil rights activists who gave many speeches to promote African American rights and integration. They used peaceful methods to convey their opinions on civil rights, and both men did not actively participate in the issue of their time until they had a moving event that changed their view on these problems.
These 2 men were also quite different. Frederick Douglass lived in the 19th century during the abolitionist movement, and Evers lived in the 20th century during the civil rights movement. Evers was part of the NAACP, while Douglass worked independently of any organization. While both men wanted nothing more than to promote civil rights, Frederick Douglass was majorly focused on the freedom of African Americans because he once was a slave, and Evers was more focused on the equality of all races.